Welcome to Roundhouse Roulette, a Walker, Texas Ranger podcast. Thank you for joining us as we recap and review one of the 200 existing Walker, Texas Ranger episodes randomly selected by Roundhouse Roulette. I'm Evan Dalton, here with my brother Adam.
What's going on?
And a man who was just inducted into the Podcasting Hall of Fame, Mr. Bob Leahy.
What's up, fellas?
Wow, I didn't know we had broadcasting royalty here, but
I'll put in my time, you know.
Well, we'd like to thank you for joining us as we review Chuck Norris's nostalgic trip into Old West. Today, we're going to be recapping and reviewing part 2 of Last of a Breed, Season 6, Episode 7 here. This is where Chuck Norris basically plays dress-up in the Old West. It's really fun.
Or is it?
Well, we'll have to dive into that pretty soon, but before we grab our ancient computers and crystallize every single photo we can into a horrifyingly unrealistic sepia-tone monster, join us as we pull up a stool at CD's Bar and Grill. Fancy meeting you guys here. This thing's getting pretty regular again. It's a little scary.
I know, yeah, I've been eating a lot of oats.
What?
Oh, jeez. Who's the dad on this Zoom?
That's great. I would say that's extremely groan-worthy, but perhaps even more groan-worthy is the description of this week's beer.
Yeah.
Well, not to be outdone by the evil deeds of Rudd Kilgore from last week's episode, CD has procured us a Buckhorn Sinner IPA from Branch and Blade Brewing Company in scenic Keene, New Hampshire.
That's right.
And he truly was a born sinner, that Rudd Kilgore.
Absolutely. I mean, that's not a hero's name. Just put it that way.
No, expertly done by Marshall Teague.
Yeah.
Now, what do you guys think Rudd's name is short for?
Probably Rudker.
Rudiger. Yeah, Rudiger.
I bet it's Rudy, and that's why he had to be so tough.
And he changed his last name to Kilgore.
Well, yeah, duh.
What does the brewery have to say about this in the Bar and Grill menu, man?
We've got wood.
What?
I don't even know how to pronounce this word. Oak?
Yeah. Feeders? It could just be
oak
feeders.
Foeders, that is. We swelled our conical foeder for a couple weeks, then used that oak-aged water for this brew. We followed our tried and true-born Sinner recipe, then fermented inside the foeder with a Norwegian kvik from our good friend Justin at Maniacal Yeast in Maine. The end result is a juicy batch of Bjorn Sinner with a solid oak and vanilla presence from the oak fermentation and aged water. You guys ready to crack this open and drink some aged water?
It sounds like it was like they put pieces of wood in water and let them soak, and then they contacted a guy named Justin at Maniacal Yeast. We're going to drink that.
One of my favorite things about the great state of Maine is driving through any road there. Any small business could have a pun based off of the state name Maine in it. And in this case, this might be the best one I've ever seen, which instead of maniacal, it's Maine-iacal.
Oh, I didn't even
like
catch
maniacs.
that. Yeah, wow.
Okay.
Spell check
All right.
did.
Wow. So let's crack these bad boys open.
Yeah, let's do it.
Something smells ridiculously fruity.
The last bit of the pour is going to be pretty chunky.
Ooh.
Oh, you guys already poured it anyway, so all right, well, you'll find out. I also just looked it up. That word is pronounced foeder.
The oak foeder.
Yeah, in its simplest form is a large barrel.
Man, we'll add that to my glossary of elitist beer jargon.
What do you guys think about this beer? Is it a saint or a sinner?
It's much better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
It's like a really complex IPA.
Yeah,
It's almost smoky, almost spicy.
it's got that bitterness right at the end, but
Yeah, if they didn't say that they had aged water in it, I'd feel better about the aftertaste.
Yeah.
But now I'm just thinking like there's something kind of musty and weird that I just drank.
yeah.
I don't know. I kind of dig it. I'm not going to lie. And, you know, it's so good, I might do bad things.
Okay.
Um, well, I'm glad we're doing this over Zoom then.
Yeah.
It's getting a little hot in here.
I think I can turn. I think I can. I can turn off Adam's video.
Well, being that, this beer was from New Hampshire, and Bob, you're from New Hampshire, right?
It's true.
Now, what state facts can you tell us about New Hampshire? What is the...
Yeah, sell us on it, man. Really sell us.
What's the state motto?
Live free or die.
Okay. What's the moniker of the state?
Oh, the Granite State.
There you go. Okay. What is the state bird?
The purple finch.
And what is the state tree?
White birch.
Wow.
I'm not 100% on that, but I think I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
I'll believe it.
Yeah, I said it. I said it with enthusiasm.
There's some serious conviction there.
Well, Bob, this beer being from Keene, New Hampshire, this just seemed right to dig into this headline here.
Where is it?
On the HuffingtonPost.com, the headline is, "The price is wrong for this contestant on The Price is Right." And let's open up that article here, and I'm just going to play you guys this video real quick. So the headline is, "Massachusetts woman wins trip to New Hampshire on The Price is Right."
7,696. Let's send her to New Hampshire. Light it up.
Wait, she knows that she's going to New Hampshire?
For a Marshfield woman, the price was right, but the prize was all wrong.
She looks excited.
All contestants on The Price is Right, she was dreaming big about winning.
But when she did win, the Marshfield woman's prize was not exactly what she expected. WBZ's Paula Evans spoke with her today, and Paula, she really is being a good sport about all this.
Oh, David, Catherine Graham is such
Shots
a good
fired,
sport
Bob.
and just laughed through this whole talk about how she traveled.
If she was
out to
from, like,
California,
California,
to
she'd be
visit her daughter
pumped.
and to be on The
All right.
Price is Right. In the episode
She still
that
is
aired
pumped.
on
Look at her.
February 1st, you see Catherine
for the
come
cameras.
down, bidding time after time throughout the show.
these people are authentic.
Without success, but then on the last chance to bid, she was the closest and got her turn to win one of the big prizes.
I want to know,
Game was
what does a
side by
big
side.
New Hampshire
All she had to
vacation
do
look like?
Was used to
I know. Well, you can tell us.
and reveal the prize, and she did it. And her big
You can go
prize
hiking in the White
was a
Mountains.
5-night
You can
trip
stay
to
in a
New
tent.
Hampshire. Not exactly the big destination people here in Massachusetts dream about.
Drew goes, "Oh, that's great. Congratulations. New Hampshire's beautiful." And I go, "Drew, I live in Boston."
Beautiful. We all love New Hampshire. There is
Oh,
nothing wrong with
absolutely.
New Hampshire.
Of course,
I've been there
of course.
a million times.
Yeah,
I just
that's also
wish it was
true.
at Tahiti or someplace.
Makes sense.
Bora Bora, someplace.
Someplace warmer and more than an hour's drive away.
Yeah, cruise around the world, maybe,
And get this, the trip includes round-trip airfare from Los Angeles to New Hampshire. Catherine also won $1,000 for spinning $1 on the big wheel.
Oh, she did it all.
It doesn't say where they sent her.
6
Like,
hours the other direction and go to Hawaii.
I know, that'd be good. Maybe Drew Carey could work that out for her.
Yeah.
That is a
Doubt
fun
it.
story, and we should say it again, how much we love New Hampshire, and I'm
Yes,
sure she does as well.
Absolutely.
By the way,
Congratulations to Catherine.
as we're headed to weather,
Yeah.
little side note, Zach Green, our meteorologist, was on The Price is Right and won a car.
That's right.
Fun fact.
A big,
Wow.
big prize.
he
for
drove it to
Zach.
New Hampshire.
He could drive to New Hampshire.
He could, he could get together with Catherine and they could drive together.
Great.
Now, Bob, how do you feel about the condescending tone they're taking about New Hampshire here? They're all like,
They're
they're
very
like, we
careful.
love New
Yeah,
Hampshire.
they're very
It's
careful.
fantastic.
A lot of people in southern New Hampshire probably watch that newscast, so they're being very, very careful about, they're treading lightly. But, I
Lisa
mean-
Hughes is going to get some death threats.
So they're kind of pandering to both sides here. I mean, they're saying, oh, if you're in Massachusetts and want a trip to New Hampshire, a 5-day trip to New Hampshire, what a waste. That's the takeaway here, Bob.
I'm telling you, on the
What do you
weekends,
think?
on the weekends, 93 and 495 up to New Hampshire, they're just backed up all summer long. All right. And most people
Excellent.
are going up there to get smokes and cheap beer and cheap booze. And a lot of them are going to Maine too, I think. But regardless, it's a destination. It's a destination.
You could do some tubing down the river. The water temperature is about 40 degrees.
It's a little brisk. Yeah.
They have skiing, right?
They do have skiing. Yeah, there's skiing in New Hampshire. And you can drive up Mount Washington, on the toll road.
Before we dig into the episode here, if you guys are at all interested in helping out the podcast here, one way to do so is writing us a review on iTunes. Apparently, it helps.
Not iTunes anymore. There's no such thing.
It's called the Apple Podcasts.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Jeez, man. What is iTunes? Is that what you use to integrate with your iPod Nano?
Right. You download the songs from LimeWire, right? And then you crash your parents' computer.
Okay, I'm going to
before you do it.
Now, can you play that on your Game Boy or?
It only works on a Zune.
We implore people to leave us reviews on Apple Podcasts or wherever they get their podcasts, because it really helps out. I don't know. There's some sort of algorithms. The internet works in mysterious ways. And we just want to thank people for giving us some good reviews.
Yeah. And if you leave one, you might hear us read it out here on the podcast. Currently, we have 2 reviews, and we've been doing this for 2 years. So
one a year. It's not bad.
And honestly, I want bad reviews on there too. If you hate this podcast, I want a bad review. I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're a 5-star. We have a 5-star rating. Only 2 written reviews, but 5.
That's just impossible. That's not correct.
Yeah. People aren't being honest. We need some constructive criticism.
It's true. And honestly, if we want to keep up the current rate we're getting reviews at, we got 1 in 2020 and 1 in 2021. So please, maybe you could be the one person to review us in 2022.
It's a great honor.
To start things off here, we're going to read the 2 reviews we have. The first one is from October 20th, 2020, and it just says, awesome recap.
Thank you. Thank you, screen name RJNC00.
You don't even need to leave text on there because actually 9 people did rate it 5 stars, but we only have 2 written reviews. If you just want to go put 1 star or 5 stars up there, you can do that too. But preferably you leave us some critique and tell us what we're doing wrong.
Can I review it?
We don't want to do it ourselves.
I'll just leave
Bob,
one
this is like you leaving a comment on our website.
Yeah. We can't do that. We don't want to do that,
Just for the record, no one has left a comment on our website yet, so I have not put up my tiered list of Santana records. Which honestly, I got into like the 80s, and at that point, I just shut it off.
That's probably for the best.
This review comes from Mondo Don't Text. I think that's a reference to Machete. So
some good content on one of the best TV shows of all time. As someone who has covered WTR on my own podcast, I'm glad to see another podcast showing the same love.
Shout out to Mondo and the Talented Slackers podcast. They're awesome. Go check them out. Thank you guys for the support and spreading the word. If you'd like to hear your review right up here, get it up there. We'll read it next time we meet here. Before we head out, we'd like to give a shout out to
John from Wilsonville, Alabama. John helped us out by purchasing a Chuck Norris Kenner action figure.
Yeah, he picked up an action figure on our website.
Fantastic. John, if you're listening, thank you very much. You help keep the podcast running.
Yeah, I mean, he paid for a whole month of hosting the podcast by purchasing that action figure, and he's got something to put on his bookshelf.
He does.
Do you think he puts it on his bookshelf, or do you think he puts it on his nightstand? What would you guys do?
Neither. Hood ornament.
Ooh,
wow. Get the hot glue gun out and just
Adam,
check on the hood.
You're saying you wanted the Dodge Ram hood ornament. Maybe this would be even better.
Definitely.
You could write it off. Yeah. Write it off.
Here's one of the problems with picking up these vintage action figures and then cleaning them and reselling them with action figure stand and sticker. I've got multiple Chuck Norrises that are like stunt doubles because their legs are broken. They can't even stand up. Or the spring is broken and the spring action kick. And I'm not going to resell those to fans of Roundhouse Roulette. So I've got a few burner Chuck Norris action figures that I could glue to the hood of my car.
That's true. And then if someone did steal them, which they will, it wouldn't be the end of the world.
All right. Well, we got a lot to cover this week. If you don't want any spoilers at home, hit that pause button and watch Season 6, Episode 7, Last of a Breed Part 2, and come right on back to us. Welcome back. This episode originally aired on November 8th, 1997. That's 1 week after Part 1, so people had to wait a week to see the thrilling conclusion of this 2-part series. And this puppy opens up on a previously on Walker, Texas Ranger.
Are all the recaps this long? This seemed really long to me.
That's probably because the last episode was so bad.
But there were like very specific details that didn't matter, you know? Normally when you see it previously on, they'll take plot points that were actually important. This is like whole like lines that just... Ugh.
Sorry, man. Sorry you didn't dig it.
Well, I'm just saying, I mean, we've seen other recaps that were better than the episode that followed.
That's true. That is true. This was not one of those, but we did get caught up on the action. So what was this recap real quick for listeners if they, for whatever reason, didn't listen to Last of a Breed Part 1 and just wanted to get the whole thing over in one podcast? What happened in that last episode that was in this recap?
Basically, Walker, he takes a bunch of kids on a field trip to the Texas Ranger Hall of Fame and Museum.
Right. And they have the still of the museum. It looks like a library, but Walker's truck is strategically parked in a non-parking spot right next to the sign.
Here's the question. Do you think he brought all 12 children in the bed of his truck?
Yeah. Maybe. He possibly did.
He
but I know like
up.
they definitely parked his truck like there to show off the Dodge because like, well, this is a flashback episode. We got to get the Dodge in there somehow.
Mm-hmm.
It looks illegally parked. It doesn't look real. Yeah.
But you're not going to tell, Walker, hey, man, you got to move your truck, man.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, it's untowable. Anyways, it's like Mjolnir. Only he can drive it.
Sure.
Okay. Recap is Walker takes a bunch of kids to the Texas Ranger Hall of Fame and Museum.
Check.
In the process, he tells the story of Hayes Cooper, who is a historic Texas Ranger in the Hall of Fame and who also happens to be played by Chuck Norris in the Old West. Hayes Cooper rolls into town as a bounty hunter, gets turned into an honest man because he meets a nice family who ends up getting killed by a land baron who wants their land, and he swears vengeance upon these people.
Done. End of recap. Done.
Yep.
Excellent.
Nice.
All right.
Majestically done. Now
Torturous.
We might add that we really only get to see the bad guy at the end of the episode, Rudd Kilgore, portrayed by Marshall Teague, and his henchman, portrayed by Wayne Perret.
Yeah. Yep.
So, but we get a lot more of them in this second half. So, after the recap, they don't even play a theme song yet, right?
Yeah, this is for still.
No.
Yeah.
Walker's doing voiceovers as he narrates Hayes Cooper's journal. And the journal, Walker just pulled off the wall at this museum. Like it seems like that document should be protected in some way, not just open for leafing through.
It was like an ancient document, an ancient
right.
journal from...
And not only did the journal have lots of text that really set the stage and told us every detail of everything, but also any details that weren't told in words. Hayes Cooper was quite the illustrator.
Yeah, as we learned in the last episode, he was actually doing like illustrations, and his journal is littered with these illustrations of his own origin story.
And they're often illustrations of himself, which it's not exactly clear how he gets those, but that's cool. The illustrations in this episode in particular are basically they use the crystallize function on some ancient computer program to make a photograph look like a black and white drawing. They use it for transitions in this, but when they transition back to Walker reading the journal, you see a still image of him holding the journal, and then the superimposed like grainy crystallized image really awkwardly like stamped onto it.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure back in those days, that was something that took a lot of time and was really hard to do. But nowadays it just looks really bad.
Yeah, it's silly. It really is.
Anyways, Hayes Cooper and his fiancée are mourning the death of the Wilson family. You hear the voiceover Walker say, Hayes Cooper, he would often say he died that day, and God help the people he took to hell with him.
And we're like, okay, finally we get some action here, because really, Hayes Cooper didn't really do anything last episode. He fell in love, but his fists, didn't really fall into the right place. You know what I'm saying?
Not so much. Well, yeah, he really gets back into action by paying the Undertaker to bury his friends.
His fiancée, Sarah, is watching and being like, something's changed. A switch has been flipped after they both found their friends dead, and he might not be the same person anymore. And he's just watching him ride off on a horse. And he rides back to the Wilsons' house, and this was so weird, right?
In the last episode, we see him take his gun and put it into a chest at the foot of a bed, and his buckskin shirt. He's done with the bounty hunter ways.
All right.
He's going to settle down. And you hear Sarah say, and where do you put your heart, Cooper?
Oh, yeah. Before he rides off, and he decides to ride off to get his buckskin suit and gun. And you're like, well, I guess that's where he puts his heart.
I think you hear her voiceover again say, and where do you put your heart, Hayes Cooper? And he just picks up a gun.
That's it. Yeah, that's so good.
Did you guys notice the very uplifting music playing during this scene too? It's like,
yeah. I was blown away. I was blown away by the music in this episode. It's like a real movie score.
It was like an Old West like orchestration.
They really went all out on this one.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, this is season 6, so they're way into MIDI and all the other ones, like digital music. But this is where they spent the budget.
Or they just, they used pre-recorded Western music, which is probably readily available.
It sounded a lot. There were certain parts that sounded just like the Lord of the Rings. I don't know if you guys picked up on that too. It was like, no. There was a certain thing that just kept us.
Well, it's like the Old West kind of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they had how many decades of Westerns in their music to steal?
Right. Like 5.
Yeah.
So Rudd Kilgore, who killed the Wilson family in last episode and is the big bad of this episode, and was hired by the town's mortgage broker,
Silas Bedeau.
Yeah, Silas Bedeau, to run them out so that they could build the railroad on their land. He has skipped town, but some of his lackeys are still in town at the bar, and Hayes Cooper goes in to confront them.
Now, those lackeys, I don't know if you noticed, Hayes Cooper refers to them as long coats.
Yes, that's the term, long coat.
Yeah, they all have sweet dusters.
That's because he's in his skin-tight buckskin suit.
And bad guys wear long coats.
Huh.
They're like the trench coat mafia.
Well, he's asking him where Kilgore is, and they're not telling him. So he basically shoots both of them down, and then steps out of the saloon.
Right, and we might add that in the last episode, he was a lot more of a gentle bounty hunter. He didn't kill anybody with a gun, but this Hayes Cooper, he's had friends who were killed. He's bringing that death tally to the other side.
Yeah, you could tell he's back in his game too, because when he twirls the gun, there's a sound effect.
So before he puts it back in his holster.
Yep.
Tasty. Yep. That was epic. Then he goes to the Mercantile, which is owned by his fiancée, who he met in the last episode and proposed to. And he goes there to visit her before he leaves town. And
he just stands there silently, which is, that's Chuck Norris's MO.
Yep.
And he just stands there silently, and she's like, I reckon you're just not going to settle down, and I'm not going to be able to convince you otherwise. And he was like, yep.
Yeah, pretty much.
Sorry, bye.
Yeah.
To which I would say, why?
Yeah, no kidding, right? Like they literally said in the last episode, that was the greatest day of his life when he proposed to her. They own the property, right?
Yeah, they just inherited the entire farm. He bought the damn thing.
He bought the farm.
So he could have just, they could have been an awesome last stand on that land if he had to protect it and did like a Home Alone Western style. That would have been sick.
Joe Pesci.
All The Siege.
Yeah. But we did. That's not what we got. But no, he's like, oh, I've got to avenge the Wilson's death and not love you anymore, essentially.
So he's about to try to leave town, and he gets intercepted by a Texas Ranger who wants to bring him in because, he just shot 2 people in the town saloon. So, you can't really do that without drawing some attention to yourself.
Right.
So this Texas Ranger's like, look, man, I got to arrest you till I figure out what the hell just happened. And Cooper's all like, you're Cabe Wallace, right? And he's like, you bet I am. And he's like, well, I know better than to draw down against you, so I guess I'm going to my jail cell.
So Hayes Cooper is in a jail cell, and we're like, this is really odd, right? It's kind of like, what is
It's a sign of respect, right, to this other guy. He's obviously a pretty good shot.
I guess so.
Yeah. And, basically while he's in his jail cell, they do their detective work, which is basically just going to Cooper's fiancée and asking what happened, to which she'd say he's innocent, and they just let him go.
Like, okay.
Yeah, cool.
Right, because, your fiancé wouldn't lie for you.
Yeah. And Wallace is like, hey, man, now, you're about to go hunt down Rudd Kilgore. I know you are.
This might be my favorite part of this episode.
So if you're just gonna be going and hunting down Rudd Kilgore, might as well do it wearing this. Wham! Throws down Texas Ranger badge onto the desk.
Can you describe the shot of the Texas Ranger badge that he throws down onto the desk?
It looks like it's made out of like an old school quarter or something.
It was thick. It was heavy, right?
Chunky. There's a sound effect when it hits the table. Yeah.
Do you think he always carries around a spare badge just in case he needs to hire somebody?
Definitely. He's got a few of them.
Yeah, he actually, this is not like a really special thing. He does it like all the time.
Yeah, he's got.
If you looked at it, it actually says Junior Texas Ranger.
Ooh.
Whoa.
It's for the kids.
So Hayes Cooper's like, okay, I guess I'll do that.
And Cabe's like, pays $1 a day and you buy your own bullets. Upon receiving his sick Texas Ranger badge, he hops out of his jail cell and he rides off into the sunset, leaving his fiancée crushed behind.
Yeah, in the whole episode, his fiancée Sarah is literally, all she is tasked with doing is like peering around the corner of her shop.
And looking like she's about to sob.
I mean, and she does it expertly, so.
Oh, yeah. So Cooper's tracking Kilgore, and he's basically following this trail of destruction that Kilgore and his men are leaving behind.
They essentially are just like, he followed the dead bodies. There's enough dead bodies that he's able to follow a trail. That's a lot of killing, right?
It's Kilgore, man. That's his MO.
It's in his name.
So in the process, Rudd Kilgore and his men, we see them take over a town called Ransom. And there are a couple of scruffs that have kind of made Ransom their home and their own turf. And they're not feeling too happy about Kilgore coming in and saying it's his town. And the one leader of the people who are there already, he has a little bit of a drawdown with Kilgore. Adam's mimicking Kilgore's patented draw style, pre-draw
taps the handle
technique, which is basically he's a what would you call it? A cross draw? Is that the term? Where his gun is on his left hip, but he grabs it with his right hand, and he taps the handle of his gun with his fingers as he's waiting for the other guy to make his move. And Wayne Pere's character, who's like total scruff, drunk, like crazy dude.
And he's like essentially the main henchman for Kilgore.
Oh yeah,
he's the wild
totally.
card.
He's the Iago to Kilgore's Jafar, and he's like, hey man, this guy's like, he's a pretty tough guy. He's a pretty good shot. Do you really want to do this? And Kilgore's like, yeah, I'm just gonna shoot him, and he does.
Yeah, real quick.
Yeah, and Marshall Teague's Kilgore he's pretty badass, right?
He's pretty menacing.
Yeah.
He takes out a lot of guys that look like they were in like Leonard Skinner.
Yeah, he really makes short work of these guys, and it kind of proves, Kilgore, he's a really good shot, so whoever goes up against him is going to have a tough time.
Definitely.
I wonder who will go up against him.
Yeah.
Good question.
We'll have to wait and see.
In his trailing of Kilgore, Hayes Cooper encounters some dead Native Americans, and he basically sees a need for them to be buried properly. So he decides to give them a proper burial and respect.
Right. And on a hill, like watching him do this, it's like the silhouette of a Native American with like a rifle. And you're like, is he going to take out Hayes Cooper? But
We know that's not going to happen.
yeah, he doesn't. He just kind of goes away and just kind of observes Chuck Norris. It looked like he was doing a Native American burial. Chuck Norris's character put feathers on the graves and stuff, right?
Yeah, those are legit golden eagle tail feathers. So there you go.
I was waiting for Hayes Cooper to be part Native American, but they never addressed that in this episode.
I'm sure they will when we see Hayes Cooper again.
I mean, he's wearing buckskin and he's doing Native American ceremony. Anyway, okay. So what happens is Hayes Cooper goes to some random town and shoots one of Kilgore's men and then talks to a guy who is a native there. And he's like, oh, they're in Ransom. So that's how he knows that they're in the town Ransom. So we flash to Ransom. Kilgore has now taken over with this gang, and the whole gang is just getting wasted in this bar. Kilgore is just sitting in the center table like a boss hoss, and Hayes Cooper busts in with like a mini rifle. What does he have for a gun? It's like a...
Oh, that's a Winchester, right? The old school rapid multi-loading rifle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The gun that won the West, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There's like tons of guys in here, though, with guns drawn on Hayes Cooper. But Cooper, he's got Kilgore in his sights. He's like, you guys can try to shoot me, but Kilgore's gone if you do.
Let's just say his negotiation tactics are very similar to Walker's.
Kilgore's like, you're in quite a predicament here, Ranger. And then Hayes Cooper fires 2 shots and takes out the beer bottles on the table, but misses Kilgore.
Next one's between your eyes.
Right. Yeah. Excellent one-liner. And Kilgore's like, well, I guess he means business, boys. Put your guns on the ground. So all of his men start doing that. But there's one straggler from outside who catches Hayes Cooper by surprise, fires a shot, and then everyone picks up their guns and starts firing at Hayes Cooper.
We have an old-fashioned Western shootout in the saloon, which is pretty great.
Hayes Cooper jumps behind the bar for protection. He gets shot.
Yeah, it takes one in the shoulder, I think.
From Kilgore. Yep. He's able to shoot down a bunch of Kilgore's men, but he realizes there's no way he can take them all out if he's got a bum shoulder. So he jumps through a window outside and then rides off on a horse into the Badlands, which they're like, well, should we go after him? And, there's a classic thing that's like, nah, man, he's just out in the Badlands now and he's wounded. Like, if the buzzards don't get him, the Comanches will.
Nice.
Right. So, and does he pass out or something? What happens?
We get to see him riding around on the horse and pretending to be dazed. It's very similar to the Return of LaRue when he's been stung by a scorpion and he's kind of pretending to be dazed there as well.
Both directed by Michael Priest, by the way. So,
well, yeah, most of them are.
I mean, he probably employed the same technique. He was probably like, Chuck, look, just pretend like you're nodding off. Okay.
More so than usual.
Yeah.
So he passes out, but he's actually rescued by the watchful eye from earlier, the chief of the local Comanche tribe.
Hayes Cooper was like, what am I doing here?
Yeah, it comes to, and then the Comanche introduces himself.
And he actually, I was surprised, but he says, we don't like Texas Rangers because they force our people off our land for cattle operations, which is true. So interesting that they acknowledge the
checkered past of the Texas Rangers.
To be generous, yes.
Yeah, that is kind of surprising.
Yeah, interesting. Anyways, of course, Hayes Cooper, that's why he's in the Hall of Fame. He helped bridge those divides. Meanwhile, one of Kilgore's men rides into town and he's like, oh, we're needed back in Buckthorn. There's something going down. And so they got to go back to Buckthorn, which is the name of the town that they moved on from. That's the town that has Silas Bedeau running it now, basically.
Who was the mortgage broker from the previous episode.
And we see a scene now. We go back to Buckthorn, and the sheriff, who kind of rolled over in the last episode and just let all this criminal activity happen under his watch, was like, this is the last straw. And it's not exactly sure what the last straw is, but it's pretty clear that it has something to do with the Wilson family getting killed and then Silas Bedeau getting their land.
Right, and he was kind of like an ineffective sheriff in the last episode. He's like, I'm just going to let this stuff go, whatever. But now he's like, well, my people are dying and people are stealing other people's land. I guess this is the water bucket that broke the sheriff's back.
The spittoon that broke the buffalo's back.
The white buffalo's back. Yeah, okay.
There it is.
Okay.
Well, anyways, he's walked through his last swinging doors because he's basically like, you don't tell me what to do. I was elected by the town. And upon saying that, he's basically shot dead because Red Kilgore just came into town and shot him from like 30 yards. And as he's dying on the ground, Silas Bedeau, in his weird broken Irish / Boston / no accent, is like, well, I guess you just got unelected.
Yeah, to the old sheriff.
Great line. Fantastic line. You really told him.
The whole town is watching this. Everyone in the town is in the middle of this downtown where this just happened, the main drag. And Silas Bedeau's like, guess what? We're going to have an election for the new sheriff right now. And it's going to be Red Kilgore.
And initially, there's a little bit of reluctance. One of the perhaps more wealthy people in the town is like, that dude's wanted. This isn't good. But then Kilgore shoots him dead, and at that point, everyone's okay with Kilgore.
Yeah, they're like,
sheriff.
Yeah, sure, he's a great sheriff. Yeah, Kilgore for sheriff. And he wins easily. Just 2 shots fired.
Okay, I want to point this out now.
Okay.
There's a lot of fanfare made about things being fair draws and things like that, where people are like, well, I guess we have to have a proper drawdown. We've got to, have this showdown and all this. When in reality, Kilgore just like shoots people down all the time. Why wouldn't someone in the town just shoot Kilgore?
He only has draws with people that he respects as a challenge. He's crazy.
Right, but the people in the town are being held hostage by a madman. Everyone in that town has a gun. You know that. So why doesn't someone just shoot Kilgore?
Yeah, just shoot him in the back.
Solved.
Whatever. Yeah.
But maybe they know that when Kilgore dies, he comes back worse.
Ghost,
maybe that is part of his legend.
Core.
Yeah. He actually, this is the second incarnation of Kilgore, and he's even worse than the first.
That would explain it.
Yeah, the only way you could truly kill him is during a proper shootout.
Right. I'm just saying, there's all this fanfare made about being honorable, but he's just like ambushing people in broad daylight and just like shooting people out of nowhere. So I don't see why people feel the hesitation to, shoot him, but just throwing it out there.
Well, they have more higher morals than he does.
Okay.
All right.
It's the old West, man.
Yeah, I mean, they have to go to church, and Kilgore doesn't.
Right. So, Kilgore's all like, well, I guess I'm the sheriff now, and got some new taxes, and they're due today.
And all my men, they're my deputies.
Yeah.
Right? And so he sends them around to collect taxes, like some mafia stuff going on here.
He's going to be the sheriff of Nottingham,
He's power mad.
Yeah, he's...
He goes and harasses Sarah as well at the Mercantile.
Oh,
he's very menacing.
Cringe-worthy too. I mean,
very cringe.
Yeah, but he goes into Hayes Cooper's fiance's store. He's kind of like, "Hey, little lady, I've got something for you."
Yeah, it's gross. He's super gross.
She's like, "Get away from me! Get away from me!" He's like, "I'll see you later," and then he kind of like creeps out the door.
Super creep. Yep.
He's like, "I'll be back." Oh my god, it was terrible.
it forces Sarah to act, and she actually sends out a telegraph and calls in Cabe Wallace.
Hayes Cooper's boss.
Yeah, the ranger.
Yep, the ranger who made him a ranger. Yeah. So,
Yep.
can we talk about Cabe Wallace's walk, his stride? It looked like he had trouble walking, right?
You know, he may have been the quickest draw in the West at some point in time, but he's maybe lost a step or two.
Yeah. Do you think this actor was acting like his walk wasn't what it used to be, kind of thing?
No, I think it's a strut. He's got the gun. He's got to walk with like his arm out because
it was like a bow-legged weird.
Oh
yeah.
I think besides Wayne Perret and Marshall Teague, I mean, this guy's performance was on par with those two guys this
He's real
episode.
good.
So, I mean, I bought into him. I thought he was pretty awesome.
Yeah, he definitely was the grizzled Texas Ranger that knew this might be his last draw.
Oh yeah, for sure. So he basically challenges Rudd Kilgore, and it is his last draw. He gets shot.
When he goes out, though, he goes, time to end it. Kilgore says something like, you're going to need an army to take me down. And he goes, I'm all the army I need. Which I
was kind of like,
great.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the start of One Riot, One Ranger.
It's a one-man army right there.
Rudd Kilgore, he earned his name.
Mm-hmm. He's all about the sport of it too. And Wayne Perret, his left-hand man's like, man, that's Cabe Wallace. He's really good. He's awesome. He once took out 3 people before they even got their guns. But, Rudd Kilgore, he's not intimidated by this stuff.
Yeah. Again, there were like plenty of shots of him fingering the handle of his gun. We're going to have to put up a video of what he did here on this. I mean, this has got to be
a GIF. It could be GIF worthy.
Yeah.
It is GIF worthy.
Yeah, it definitely is GIF worthy.
Anyways, now it seems like all hope is lost because Cabe Wallace just got shot down in the street. He was kind of like their last hope.
Yeah, he's a seasoned Texas Ranger.
Renowned for his drawdown skills, and he just got wasted in the streets.
And they cut his trigger finger off, too.
Oh, I forgot about
odd
that.
Detail.
That was brutal.
Yeah. Odd detail.
They send Wayne Perret's character over there with a Bowie knife to cut his trigger finger off.
Who else would do it? I mean, he has the right.
Now
here's
the question: do you think Wayne Perret came up with that little bit?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I think he did. There were a couple things in this episode where he looks at the camera almost like,
Yeah.
And what are you gonna do with a guy's trigger finger? It's like. Is it like a lucky rabbit's foot or something like that?
Yeah, it's a trophy.
It's a trophy. Yeah. You put it in a bottle of tequila to preserve it.
That's what most people do.
It's normal.
Yeah, it's standard protocol. Here's the other thing. I think they spent the typical, this is season 6 again, remember. They spent the typical budget for this episode on traveling to, where did Mignon say this was?
Well, I was going to wait to mention this later, but Mignon, who was the script supervisor on Walker Texas Ranger, who runs the Walker TX Ranger Pics Instagram account, actually has a lot of photos from this episode up. I'm not exactly sure where it was done, but
so anyways, the budget I think was spent on taking the whole production there. So they didn't blow anything up in these episodes. But also I would say they spent a fair amount of the budget on squibs, which is not something I've seen in any other episode of Walker Texas Ranger, right?
Squibs?
So a squib is basically a mini explosive on someone's body that blows up and shoots out fake blood.
Yeah.
But there's actual blood spraying when people get shot in these 2 episodes.
Except for the kid, he didn't have any.
He did not, correct. Yeah. But the husband and wife did.
Yeah.
The first I saw that, I was like, oh, what are we doing here?
Well, can we also agree that this flashback story kind of is in its own weird universe? The vibe is slightly off from the normal vibe of a Walker episode. It's almost like we're in someone's retelling of something. So it's not necessarily exactly how it happened. It's like an exaggerated thing.
You know why you feel that way, right?
Because it is.
It's the crystallized transitions. That's why you feel that way.
Oh, maybe that's it. That's it. Yeah, the sepia.
There are no jarring zoom transitions. It's weird, gentle crystallization transitions.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Anyways, I just want to throw that out there. I thought that was odd that they kind of had a lot of gore in this episode. Cabe Wallace, he's shot down, and it seems like all hope is lost in the sweet town of Buckhorn. But don't worry, because the next day, it would seem, Hayes Cooper,
Your hero,
rolls in, and he sees Sarah, and she's like, "You're not going to try to take him out alone? Cabe Wallace just tried to do that." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to do the same thing."
My plan is exactly the same as the guy who just got killed.
Right. Again, I would say the plan is, in no world is Rudd Kilgore honorable, so just shoot him. I think that would be the most prudent thing, but Texas Ranger now, he's a law enforcement officer.
Well, he's been on the job 2 days, so he can definitely do better than Cabe Wallace.
First off, he shakes down Silas Bedeau and punches him in the face to let him know he's serious. He says, "Let everyone know that I'm in town, and I'm going to bring everyone down." Silas Bedeau's like, "All right." And so he runs into the saloon, tells everyone Cooper's back in town. They thought Cooper was dead. He's not. So the game is afoot, and then, he does the hashtag one-man army.
Yeah, totally.
It's interesting because they consciously decided not to give him martial arts skills. So he's just brute force slugging people. And there's a lot of, Flying Ranger?
They're like, "Where is he?" And he jumped through a window and busted out 2 bad guys, right?
Yeah. And he
awesome.
jumps down on top of people a lot. There's a lot of that.
"Where is he?" "Oh, he was on the roof." "Up on a roof." So Hayes Cooper, he's going through the town with all of Rudd Kilgore's gang after him, and he's been taking them out systematically. And he kind of wanders into this barn. He's looking around to see if there's any Rudd Kilgore's men around.
Yeah, at one point he got some guy in the horse stall, and the horse is getting all fired up.
Oh, right.
That was kind of interesting.
And Hayes Cooper's hat fell on the ground.
Did you guys notice every time he puts his hat on in this episode, he does it really gingerly so he doesn't mess up the wig?
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah.
Like the strings are coming down, and he's like moving them without messing up the...
Yep.
I kind of got a Hayes Cooper haircut going myself right now.
Just got to put this hat on
Bob's
here.
got the natural Hayes Cooper haircut, man. That's
Might
good.
be a little long, but yeah.
So Hayes Cooper takes out the guy in the horse stall, and he's putting his hat back on, and we see a shot of Wayne Pere's character up on the top loft, and he pulls a knife, and it looks like he's about to jump down from the loft, which probably hurt, right?
Yeah, it's a good 10 feet up at least.
But it's a solid move, and he's about to jump from this loft and stab Hayes Cooper. But right before he's about to do that, Hayes Cooper turns around with his pistol and shoots him dead.
So smooth.
I was kind of hoping for a little more back and forth, but...
Yeah, I didn't like the way he died, but I did like right before he died, his grimacing look and all that.
Yeah.
It would have been better if he jumped down, missed, and then gotten a little bit of a tussle, but it was pretty cool that Cooper just got him.
Yeah, his sixth sense.
Definitely. He's got that. Now that all of Kilgore's guys have been dispatched, he then goes out into the street and decides to have an honorable drawdown with Kilgore. Kilgore, he comes out of his...
saloon/office. He made the Ranger's office his headquarters.
Yeah, he took over the sheriff's quarters.
And he was actually napping earlier in a jail cell, which I thought was awesome.
He was napping all the time. Every time you see him, he's just like sprawled out. Just a lazy bastard. I'm like, come on.
I know he's not a lazy man. He knows how power naps work.
He's always got his feet up. Get to work.
So he steps out into the street and he's looking around for Cooper. And Cooper's right behind him. He's like, "Hey, Kilgore."
Right. And Kilgore's like, "Oh, he had the jump on me. He's behind me."
It's like, "Damn, he's uncomfortably close to me."
He's breathing on my neck. And they both turn around and they know they're going to do a draw. And they have this conversation like walking in a circle.
Oh, yeah. And he's like, "Kilgore, you gonna talk me to death?" Before they do the quick draw, Hayes Cooper has this weird flashback of all the people that Rudd Kilgore shot, And he sees basically what the people who watched the episode saw, because it's just a recap of all these things. But for every single person that Kilgore shot, Cooper wasn't there for it. So he would never have seen any of those people die.
Well, do you think it was him seeing it? Because it shows like extreme close-up of Hayes Cooper, Chuck Norris's eyes, and then extreme close-up of Kilgore's eyes. And then they're showing these flashbacks of all the people that Kilgore killed over the 2-part series. And then they show a shot of Sarah, his fiance, looking on like, oh, is he going to die? And then they go back and forth between this, and you're just like, oh, please just shoot me.
Yeah.
But let's break into this, because this might be one of the most interesting things. Was this Hayes Cooper's Native American abilities, eye-to-eye telepathy?
What does Trevette call it? The Comanche...
Cherokee skills.
Yeah.
So finally, they stop in the middle of the downtown strip, and...
they draw down.
Cooper shoots Kilgore. But, Kilgore's kind of stunned that he was beat. He was just shot in the arm. And so he actually does a full body lunge to try to get his gun on Cooper again. But Cooper, he seals the deal with another shot. And it sends him sprawling onto the ground in a heap. Just as he's about to celebrate his win, Cooper doesn't realize that Silas Bedeau's up on a balcony.
With a rifle.
Trained on him. And Sarah, just like in episode 1, is like, Cooper, look out! And Hayes Cooper turns and bam, shoots Silas Bedeau off the balcony. And Bob, he does your favorite thing, which is
when you're up in the balcony and you get shot and you fall forward. So good. This happens so often that there's got to be a nickname for this.
Well, but if you get
the
shot,
whoopsie doodle,
if you got shot below the belt, right? Because it'd be below your center of gravity, it could spin you forward.
Sure. So if you get shot in like the knee, then maybe. But even then, you get another leg. It just doesn't make any sense. But I just love it so much. What would be a good name for this? How can we describe this?
Falling forward.
Yeah, that's simple, but it's accurate.
Yeah.
It's true. Like, if the show's going to lean into the fact that if you get shot, you go flying backwards, which apparently is also not true. Right. They need to make up their minds. If you get shot and go flying backwards when you're standing on the ground, that's one thing. But you shouldn't get shot and then fly forwards if you're on a balcony. But dude, on these shows, are you kidding me? Those are the physics.
It's
the physics of Walker, Texas Ranger.
And
I'm not complaining.
Yeah, it's not just a show either. I mean, this is a thing that happens in movies forever.
yeah,
for sure.
But yeah.
Now, were you guys upset they didn't do the scream? They should have done the scream.
The Wilhelm scream would have been
so.
But all right, so now this is kind of a weird segment because the bad guy's been conquered. They say the day, and all the townspeople just like come out and are like, "Yay!" And they start like just walking around the town like it's normal, just walking around Kilgore's dead body in the middle of downtown, right?
Yeah.
Well, think of how many other people have been shot dead in the street in that town like the last week.
Then Hayes Cooper goes over and sees Sarah, right? And this interaction has never happened in the history of the human race.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What happens here?
She's like, well, I guess there's no way that you're going to ever settle down, huh?
And he proposed to her in the last episode. They're
like,
engaged.
Like four days before, right?
Right. They were building a house and a life together.
Right. She's like, well, I guess you're never going to settle down, huh? And he's like, I guess not.
Nope.
Just like leaves.
It's like, peace, I'm out.
Right. It's like, well, my boss just died in the street a day ago. I don't really have a job. And, I've got land here in town, a fiance here in town, and the person who was trying to kill me is dead now. So
I'm out.
I'm out.
Yeah.
And then, but the weird part is, then they hold hands and walk down the street towards the dead body of Kilgore.
Well, they're going to go through his pockets, take his gun and stuff.
Yeah, I got to get that.
Maybe cut off his scrotum.
Okay.
I mean, it'll be the trigger finger, if anything, but yeah, okay.
Maybe cut off his trigger finger.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay.
So then we flash back to the quote-unquote present day, late 90s.
With Chuck Norris and a bunch of kids at the Texas Ranger Hall of Fame.
And this is another one of those crystallized transitions, which is apparently a sketch that Hayes Cooper did. But this would be a sketch that is an aerial shot of the town with Hayes Cooper riding out of it. So I don't know exactly how he drew that, unless it was more like an abstraction.
He's creative.
I mean, he really saw outside of the box.
Yeah.
But anyway, Walker's all like, well, they say he was the last of a breed, and that's why he was a Texas Ranger, and he's in the Hall of Fame.
At the end of the episode, Hayes Cooper is burying
Cabe Wallace.
And he goes, "You were a last of the breed," or something like that. And we're like, oh, that's why this episode's called this.
Mm-hmm.
But he's really not, because Hayes Cooper is now a Texas Ranger.
Right. He's the last of the breed, according to Walker. But then little Timmy, or whatever his name is like, my dad says he's heard of you, and he says you're the last of a breed. And it's like the kids had never heard Walker say that like 2 seconds prior.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad they really tied the name of the episode up in the last 2 minutes of the episode.
Yeah.
With a bow, man. It's really nice.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, well, I guess our field trip's over. Why don't you guys all go file out and line up in the bed of my truck? I'll be out in a minute.
I don't have time to stop, so you're going to have to jump out at your place as we roll by.
Tuck and roll.
And he
Tuck and roll.
so he goes and puts his journal back. Puts the journal back, and he's looking at the photos on the wall, and it's like the photo of Hayes Cooper is the photo of basically Chuck Norris. And it's like, why wouldn't the kids be like,
You
hey,
look
that
a
looks
lot
exactly like you.
And did they have like cameras back then? I guess they did, but
Yeah.
The
yeah,
kind
they
of
did.
cameras we had to stand there for 10 minutes while the photo processed.
but they look like perfect photos of like
Oh, really good.
They're black and white.
Well done.
They're black and white.
Hayes Cooper and Cabe Wallace right next to him,
Right.
his mentor. And so they all file out, and then the camera stays, and we're like,
What's going on?
No, it gave me enough time to be like, wait, why didn't the kids notice that it's a picture of Chuck Norris?
Yeah.
Like, that's ridiculous. And just when I'm thinking how stupid that was, there's a voiceover, and I was confused
Yeah, yeah.
because it's a voiceover of Chuck Norris saying,
the camera's trained on the photo of Hayes Cooper when this happens.
yeah, saying, boy, he's got a shot of making it. Hey, Cabe. And then we see a shot of the photo of Cabe Wallace, and he's like, yeah, Coop, he's got all the makings. And at which point I realized, wait. These photos can talk, and they're talking to each other. What is happening?
This Hall of Fame is haunted.
Very much so.
Oh, man.
We need to get Michael Priest back on here. I got some questions.
I know.
Like, at what point were you like, you know what? We could just wrap this up, but let's have the pictures talk to each other.
I mean, I think Michael Priest would say, hey, I just shot this. You know,
Oh, I'm sure. No, he would say, I don't remember that at all. And
I
I'd
don't
be
know
like,
who
I
wrote
wouldn't
it,
expect you to.
Right, yeah. He's like, this is the hand I was dealt.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, exactly.
So
Oh, man. Well, amazing. On that extremely hokey note, that sums up this episode. And we'd love to give a shout out to our friend and collaborator, Adam Lauritsen, who's been drawing the incredible Walkerstrations on our social media. Be sure to check out his other art on Instagram at AdamEdgeNationRunAmok. When we come back, it'll be time for us to each rate Last of a Breed Part 2 on a scale of 0 to 10 boots to the face, resulting in our patented Roundhouse Roulette episode ranking, the complete results of which are available on our website, roundhouseroulette.com. Don't go away. Previously on Roundhouse Roulette.
welcome to the Roundhouse Roulette Hall of Fame podcast, listener. Here tell the origin story of this very podcast. The year is 2004. The place, Bob's dank UMass Lowell dorm room.
Come in.
Hey, Bob, meet my brother Evan, who's visiting campus with his Walker Texas Ranger DVD collection.
Adam doesn't have any friends.
Do you want to watch Walker?
Does a white buffalo statue shed tears?
I'd think twice before being Adam's friend. You won't be able to wash off the social stank.
Evan, I've had enough.
My DVD player. How are we going to watch Walker now?
Coming up next, the stunning conclusion to last week's advertisement. Find out how we mended our wounds and came together to deliver the light of Walker, Texas Ranger to the world. Meanwhile, if you listeners would like to join us in our mission, please share the podcast with a friend or leave us a kind review wherever you get your podcasts. Likewise, if you'd like to help us keep the lights on here at the Hall of Fame, check out our shirts, posters, and freshly cleaned vintage action figures at roundhouseroulette.com, or join the fun and become a ranger on our Patreon page. Most importantly, though, we thank you for listening. Now let's jump back into the story.
Evan, I'm sorry I hit you, man. Violence is never appropriate, and you're my brother.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry I tried to sabotage your friendship with Bob. I just thought you wouldn't need me anymore.
Hey, guys. I was able to resolder my DVD player back together in the tech shop. We can watch Walker beat the pulp out of bad guys until the cows come home.
That's great, Bob, but we just learned a valuable lesson here. Violence is never appropriate.
Yeah, man, I'm afraid we can't watch Walker, Texas Ranger anymore.
Guys, everybody knows that violence is bad, except when dispersed by a one Chuck Norris.
Oh, man, I guess we're in the clear.
Let's get this Walker party started.
And there you have it. Thank you for visiting the Roundhouse Roulette Hall of Fame. Let's get you back to the show.
Well, I wasn't sure how that one was really going to end, but we got there.
Yeah.
And so did you, listener. Welcome back. Yeah, I mean, I was pretty harsh on the last one. I don't have any regrets about that. I'm pretty disappointed in this episode. One, I was really hoping we get the conclusion of Silas Bedeau and we'd learn more about why he was holding a snake in the first episode. What is that? Why is that? Where did his accent come from? Who is he? But he just gets punched in the face and then shot off a balcony in this episode, which epic, but come on now. I've learned nothing here.
Look, Silas Bedeau was the reason why the first episode was terrible, Evan. That they focused on him.
No. The first episode was terrible because the stat line was abysmal. And the stat line is abysmal in this episode as well.
Read us the stats for this episode so we get a little benchmark here.
Okay. 0 roundhouse kicks, 0 explosions, 0 vehicle chases, including horse chases, and 1 fight. So, yeah, not cool. I don't count gunfights as fights.
No.
So, yeah, I mean, stat line is basically the same as the last episode. I will say the villains were better in this. There was some acting that was pretty cool, and that's about all I can say about it. What did I give it last time? A 2?
Exactly. You gave it a 2 last time.
All right, so I give this one a 3. Again, I think I'm being generous there.
Yeah, last one, there was no Walker in it, and none of the reasons we watch Walker were present. I will say there was a lot more action in this episode. Hayes Cooper had more fire to go after the bad guys, and the bad guys were menacing, but it just wasn't on par with the normal Walker Texas Ranger episode because we're in this weird flashback Western thing, and they didn't even really do anything that creative with the Western environment. It was just kind of like paint by numbers tropes, if that. A lot of it was just like them standing next to each other.
Yeah, all the things that make Walker, Texas Ranger, it's like, okay, he's a 60-year-old guy that is a Texas Ranger and does like flying roundhouse kicks for some reason. And they took all of that and eliminated it. And instead, they just put Chuck Norris in a scene like slugging people with his fists. There was like no hint of anything that makes Walker, Texas Ranger completely insane and unique.
Yeah, so, I mean, if I had to watch part 1 or part 2, just watch part 2. I do feel like there were at least some ridiculous things in this, like the pictures talking to each other at the end of the episode.
So weird.
And like the epic nature with which Cabe Wallace presented us with the Texas Ranger badge. Ridiculous. Chuck Norris jumped through 2 windows, or his stunt double Kenny did. There was some stuff in here. I'm going to move this up 1 point to a 2.
I think I had the last one at a 3, and I'm going to keep this right at a 3. Because while it was better, it had every opportunity to be so much better.
Oh, totally. And they had all the ingredients. Like the bad guys are great. It was just like they were like doing a plot about a mortgage.
Yeah.
The only ingredient they need is Chuck Norris. The guy's a karate master.
Well,
have him do karate. He's not an acting master. Also, they had Marshall Teague. Marshall Teague sparred with Patrick Swayze. Marshall Teague sparred with Chuck Norris in a previous episode. But instead, they do a stupid gunfight and die.
No.
It's a waste. It's a total waste.
I'm fine with them not doing karate, but they could have shot a few guns into like a dynamite barrel and blew that up. That would have been cool. They could have actually had like a more streamlined plot. I don't know.
All right, now how much more amazing would this episode have been if in the final showdown, Hayes Cooper throws down his gun and says, "Let's do this hand to hand," and out of nowhere, they both inexplicably know karate.
Then we're talking in the tens here. We're getting up there.
Yeah, we're moving to a 7 at least, because that would just be absurd. Like
the last 10 minutes are just like a hand-to-hand fight.
I mean, they asked us to suspend disbelief when the pictures started talking to each other, so why not?
Or when the fiancé was just like, "Oh, cool, yeah, I'll never see you again."
Right. I lost my first husband to tuberculosis, and I lost my second to no apparent reason.
To the Texas Rangers.
To his job. Really.
To his badge.
Yeah, lost it to the badge.
Well, that gives this episode a roundhouse rating of 2.666 boots to the face. And, I think we can all agree that Walker has all the makings of a member of the Texas Ranger Hall of Fame. But in the meantime, let us know what you think on social media or by emailing us at roundhouseroulette@gmail.com. When we come back, we'll be spinning that Roundhouse Roulette wheel and selecting our next epi. Don't go away. Welcome back. Bob, you ready to spin that imaginary wheel?
So ready.
Season 4, Episode 22, Deadline.
Ooh, that smells like a season finale.
That sounds legit. Yeah. Proposing to disband the Rangers as a cost-saving measure, a state senator refuses their aid when his daughter is abducted by jewel thief turned kidnapper Lyle Eckert, portrayed by Robert Englund.
Nice.
A.k.a. Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
Yes?
It seems so complicated. Jewel thief turned kidnapper.
I like it.
We get Freddy Krueger on Walker. I mean,
yeah,
come on now.
I'm happy.
All right. Well, join us next time when we share our reactions to Season 4, Episode 22, Deadline.
Oh, no.
In the meantime, share your opinions with us on Facebook and on Instagram at Roundhouse Roulette and on Twitter at Roundhouse Pod. Thanks for listening, and until next time,
may the eyes of the Ranger be upon you.
When you're in Texas, look behind you. Oh, 'cause that's where the Ranger's gonna be.